In this video, you will learn how to deconstruct a complex standard or goal to clarify your learning targets for students. A deconstructed standard also helps teachers make more efficient instructional decisions and leads to aligned assessments. We have standards for most disciplines, but the standards without analysis are far from clear. Standards are filled with both specific academic language as well as abstract terms that need defining. Most standards are also complex, identifying multiple qualities of the expected learning. The deconstruction process allows us to take standards and turn them into learning targets to ensure students understand what is needed from them. Once you deconstruct, not only are your students clear about what you want, but you're clear and can maintain consistent expectations. We're going to go through the deconstruction process by breaking down a pretty complex goal, learning to drive a car. The first step in the deconstruction process is to consider what knowledge is required by the standard. At this level, students would be learning specific facts and defining vocabulary. Knowledge objectives for learning to drive a car would include identifying and explaining road signs and listing the steps for completing three-point turns. Skill and performance targets define what the learner must be able to do or show. Shifting gears and parallel parking are examples of a new skill a driver may need to learn. Reasoning targets identify the higher order thinking skills students need to develop. Once I teach a few basics about driving, most of the time I spend with a new driver is helping her make good decisions as she drives. Products represent how a student has synthesized their new learning. They are also created to share information learned with others. So as I think about my goal of teaching someone to drive, what would make a good product? A brochure of the driving rules? A movie of the new driver showing off different driving maneuvers? This brings up an important point in the deconstruction process. Not all of these steps are needed to deconstruct a standard. If I'm focused on helping someone learn how to drive, creating a product to share information with others doesn't fit. So in this example, I would not have any product outcomes. We know the impact learner characteristics can have on learning. Therefore, we set one or two disposition outcomes to focus on attitudes, habits, or practices that will support students most in their learning for the standard. For instance, when I taught my daughter how to drive, it became clear that we needed to work on the disposition of being a confident driver. She would pull up to a stop sign, look right and left and right again, and then instead of pulling out because she could safely do so, she would ask, "Should I go?" She needed to learn to be confident by realizing if she's following the rules of the road, she could proceed. Focusing on this disposition, she also had to realize that hesitation and second guessing put her more at risk as a driver. Once you've deconstructed your standards, review your deconstructed statements. Knowledge, skills, performance, product, and disposition objectives should represent only the new learning you'll focus on. Statements that represent previously learned material should not be included. For instance, if I'm focused on teaching behind the wheel, I don't need to teach roadside signs because that would have been learned earlier. This is also a good time to think about what you can manage in your instruction. You may realize that you've identified objectives that go beyond the expected performance of students, such as parallel parking. As you deconstruct, write your statements in student-friendly language. In addition, remember to use verbs to designate the type of learning students will be doing. It's true that the deconstruction process takes time, but by thinking through what we want our students to know, perform, reason, and produce, and the dispositions critical to that learning, we save ourselves time at the end. Deconstruction leads to clear communication to your students, stronger lessons, and a more efficient path to your learning goals.